Welcome to the mentorship project, How to Become a Judge series. I am Raghav Singh on behalf of the mentorship project, and I'm so proud to have with me one of our mentees, Swati Bhargava, who has cracked Madhya Pradesh Judicial Services exam this year. Swati, welcome to the mentorship project.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, Swati, we'll kickstart with conversation with a little bit of introduction about yourself, and then we'll move on to when did you start to actually think that you can become a judge and you can start preparing. So we'll start with your introduction first.
So my name is Swati Bhargava. I belong to Raghugarh, Madhya Pradesh. It's in Guna district. I've completed my graduation from Hidayatullah National Law University in year 2020. I've completed my LLM from Renaissance University, Indore in year 2022. After that, I was working as a young professional in Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. Simultaneously, I appeared for MP examination, judiciary examination, and I cleared it this time only in February.
Great. So Swati, coming over to the next question, as when did you start to think that, or when did you aim to become a judge? Was it in your initial college years, or was it because you are coming from a national law university? So most or generally the trend in NLUs and kind of universities is that you need to go for a corporate job or maybe higher
Yes.
studies. So when did you actually think that you wanted to become a judge?
So subconsciously, the idea was always there. My parents always wanted me to become a judge. But when I went to an NLU, I was very open-minded at that time. I wanted to explore all the options. So I had corporate law as my honors subject. I did all the corporate internships till my 10th semester. I appeared for corporate job interviews because I wanted to get a hint of it, how the life on the other side is, and then decide what I want to pursue. In my 10th semester, when I was all done with my corporate internships, PPO interviews, then I realized that, okay, this is something I actually want to do, and now I cannot further delay it. So after my graduation, I started preparing for judiciary properly.
All right. So it was after your graduation that you started preparing.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right. So before your graduation, you did all your internships like a normal student does, and exploring all the areas which are there, be it now.
Yes, sir. You can call it a drawback also or something. I don't know. People start preparing from their third year, fourth year. But I wanted to actually explore, and I was like, okay, this thing I cannot do after my college, but preparation can still be done after my college. So somewhere it can help me in my personality and interview sessions. And in interview also, when we appear and tell them that we have interned at these many places, it always gives an upper hand, I guess.
Obviously, it does, and I would never call it a drawback for a simple reason that you gain some perspectives when you intern at these places. So I would always, and again, this is an experience which is anyway going to help you when you go in the interview rounds and even in your profession at a later stage. Now, Swati, let us talk about the preparation. That once you started preparing, was your strategy different to prepare for prelims and mains? Because that is one basic question that most of the aspirants have, that first I'll start to prepare for prelims and then I'll start to prepare for mains. So what was your strategy? How did you prepare?
Sir, what I think is the moment you start preparing, the preparation should be for mains only. Because meanwhile you are preparing for mains, you are also getting trained for pre-examination because subjects will be the same. And nowadays, the kind of questions that they are asking in pre-examination, they are not just ऊपर से पढ़ लिया and हो गया type of questions. So you'll also need the in-depth knowledge about the sections and everything. And there are problem-based questions also. So I guess the moment you start preparing, you just go through all the subjects properly so that your concepts are cleared once. So your main preparation is the one thing that you should start first, and pre will be done simultaneously. So I strategized in a way that when the notification came out, then I started solving objective type questions from the pre point of view. Until then, I made all the notes from the mains point of view, and I was answering questions and attempting mocks for the mains examination. But by the time notification came out, I had 1 month when the form was filled out and the dates were announced. So then I started preparing for pre-examination.
All right. Okay, Swati, now coming over to the preparation part in depth. All right. So once you have started preparing from the mains point of view. So where did you start when you started picking subjects? As in, did you start uh, picking two subjects at a time? Or was it completing one subject and then moving on to another subject? That is the first question. Second question, what was the timeline you kept in your mind when you started preparing about these subjects?
Yes, sir. So, sir, when I started preparing, I kept it like one subject at a time. But when I started preparing, notification actually came out in 2 months only. So I had to change a bit of my strategy at that time. And I completed few subjects on the mains point of view and few subjects on the pre point of view. So
Mhm.
that was my first attempt. I was not completely prepared. But I'll suggest keeping one subject at a time. And if you have time and the notification is not coming out, revising the other subjects simultaneously so that you don't forget about that.
Correct, correct. Uh, then there are subjects like CPC, CRPC. They never end when you start preparing. They just, you need to just read and read and read, and you see that this subject is not ending. So what was your strategy about these subjects, say CRPC, CPC,
Um,
bulky
yes,
subjects?
sir. So what I believe is reading through the subjects is one thing, and analyzing and making to know, identifying that what questions can be asked in examination is the other thing. So if you are preparing these bulky subjects also from the examination point of view, the first thing one person can do is identify what type of questions are asked in the examination, and secondly, what kind of questions can be asked in the examination. It's not necessary that you will be writing down all the sections and all the clauses and everything, but once your concept should be clear, and second, you do not need to rote learning everything. Just
Correct.
identify the questions and practice them accordingly. It
So
will never be like be very
identify,
much confident.
how did you identify these questions, that these are the questions? Did you go through the past year question papers?
Yes,
Did
sir, yes,
you
sir.
already?
Sir, I went through the past year questions, not only of MP, but of other states also. And the second thing I did was I analyzed myself that if these kind of questions are asked, can this question also be asked?
Okay.
So I analyzed other portions also in my second round. First round, I did all the important questions only, and whenever I was going through the Bear Act again, I guess you when you read Bear Acts continuously, you get a hint of it. That if this is important in your second time reading, you will automatically get it. Okay, this will also be important.
All right. So, what about resources? What are the kind of resources you have used while you were preparing?
So I use there's a book of singles for the objective type questions.
Okay.
Then there's Samarth Agrawal for means. I referred it for the answer making portions and making points so
Hmm.
that it was helpful for quick revision.
Hmm.
And for computer GK for the pre-examination, I referred various YouTube channels. And I didn't refer any book particularly, but I
Okay.
went through various YouTube channels so that only one perspective doesn't fit. What if the question is asked differently for these portions? They might seem to be smaller in proportion, rationally in weightage terms, but they play an important role because
Correct.
law everybody knows, but these might be making a difference in getting you through the cutoff. And that's all, sir. For my interview, I referred my notes only.
Notes. All right. So now the next question is that when you start preparing, when is the right time to practice papers? So there are a lot of books where question papers are given, and when you are done with your preparation, for example, you are done with CRPC, CPC, or say paper one, when we talk about particularly Madhya Pradesh Judicial Services. So when is the right time to go for practicing papers in general? Or did you prepare?
Sir, I
Did
guess the
you
moment you start
practice?
preparing for something, so there are multiple books available in the market which gives you sectional wise question paper. So, for example, in CRPC, you are reading just 4 sections initially. So, there will be a heading preliminary questions, and those will contain all the questions that have been asked from that particular portion in almost all the judicial examinations. So you just read those portions and then attempt those questions, because reading them and learning is one thing and attempting those questions is another thing. Because sometimes people are really brilliant, I have seen, and they really work hard, but they cannot understand that what will be the right option in the 4 options. because two options might be confusing or all the options must be wrong sometimes, but you never know what will happen to that question. So I guess developing that instinct, that once you have read that portion and then you have secondly attempted that portion, that gives you an idea how to analyze the correct answer, and if not even the correct answer, how to eliminate the wrong answers.
Correct. True. Very true. Swati, let us discuss paper-wise strategy. So,
Yes.
since we are talking about Madhya Pradesh Judicial Services, so there are 4 papers. So, let us talk about paper one. So, we want you to first tell what was your experience while preparing for paper one. Second, what was your experience while writing the paper one? What were the challenges you faced, and what are some points which has to be taken, which you have to be taken in mind by the aspirants while preparing for paper one?
Sir, I would like to answer the strategy for paper one combined with paper three.
All
So,
right.
because for both the papers are the law papers, and I prepared accordingly. So, one thing, the difficulty I faced was, it's always you can read everything wherever you are getting time, but when the exam is nearer, it becomes very much difficult to revise all the subjects.
Just
For
to clear,
paper one,
one and paper three are civil and criminal law.
yes, thank you.
Right.
So yeah, so you reading is one thing, and when the examination is really near, revising all the things is very much difficult. So I made all the bullet points. So I used to make synopsis of every portion. For example, if it's res judicata, I'll think of everything that I'll going to write in that answer. I'll write section 11, I'll write exceptions, number of exceptions, explanations it has, if any other portion is there, if it has any exception, if is there any illustration. So I used to memorize it by that way. So in my books, in my notes, I had put some sheets, which are the sticky notes, and I had just made bullet points. So once I'll go through those bullet points, I'll automatically know what to write in the question paper. Because it happens many a times with aspirants that we tend to read a lot many things when we are actually preparing. But when we go on to writing, we cannot actually write everything. Because if you end up writing everything, you'll firstly the evaluators here are judges. They are not the professors of the universities, so they are not going to read everything that you have written. They'll only read the important pointers, and it will become really difficult for them to identify what are the important portions in your answer. And secondly, you will not be able to complete that paper. So no matter how much better answer you are writing, but if you are not able to complete that paper, it will not give you a benefit or edge over it. So I made synopsis for both the papers, and I also made sure that my writing practice is up to the mark till the time paper is there. So I attempted various mocks. If not the full length mocks, then the sectional mocks. Because that 4 papers happen in 2 days gap only, and you don't have any time to rest. So by the time you are writing your fourth paper, your hands are paining, your back is paining, and you are just want to finish it anyhow. So I made sure that I write enough answers that I don't get exhausted much during the examination. I also made sure that I don't write much in the examination, because on day one we are fully energetic and everything, but we overwork ourselves, it will be really difficult for day two. I'll also suggest the only difference in paper one and paper three can be that focus on paper three from the beginning only, because in paper one you will get plenty of time to revise because that will be the first paper. But for paper three, it will be on the second day, and you'll get back to your home by 6 or 7 p.m. by
Right.
finishing your 2 papers. So there won't be any time to revise that. So you can just focus a more from the beginning on paper three.
Correct. Correct. All right. So, what was your strategy when it comes to completing the paper? Because as you said that it would be very tiring, particularly when it comes to paper three. So,
Correct.
first question is that did you complete both the papers, or did you leave any questions unattended?
So I completed all my papers, thankfully. So I bifurcated the timeline that if I have 13 minutes to write an answer, I actually took 10 minutes while practicing. And by the time my watch hit like 10 minutes timer, I skipped that question and rushed to the other question. So that strategy I followed because I had in my mind that if CPC is there, CRPC is there, how much time I'm going to devote to those sections. It may happen sometimes that the question is of same marks, but the writing portion is different For some question, you can write just little bit of it and you will get more marks only. And some questions might be lengthy in itself. So that you can identify at that time only. That we cannot pre-plan. But however, you can identify that if there are these 6 subjects in one paper and you are getting 3 hours, you just have to write accordingly 8 or 10 minutes for the one part of the question. Usually there were 2 questions of 8 marks, but now since they have bifurcated the questions, you will get 2 mark question, 1 mark question. They have divided it in 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 or something like that. So you cannot be obviously prepared for that from prior intimation only, but you can just make in your head like if there is one subject, I'll need to complete it in that time, because no matter how hard you try at that time, you cannot complete that. You need timing to think also. There will not be the same questions that you have practiced, so you cannot take whole of the time. So I had in my mind that I'll get 13 minutes to write one answer, but I intentionally made it 8 to 10 minutes so that I get time to think also.
Another confusion that a lot of students have while preparing for this is that if there is a question of 5 marks or say 10 marks, then there are n number of pages I have to write. So did you also have this sort of a objective when you were writing that this is a question of 5 marks and I should write at least 1 or 1.5 page before moving on to the next question?
Usually people tend to write so many pages, that I've seen and I've heard also. But since, as I've already said, that evaluators here are judges, so they are already way ahead of us. They already know that sometimes people tend to write unnecessary things in order to just fill the pages. So my strategy was not to fill the pages. Also, I have a drawback that my writing speed is really slow. So I just kept it at my mind that if some question is asked, I'll be writing essentials first, and if time permits, then the other things. So I hardly wrote like 1 page for a 4 marker and 2 pages for an 8 marker. And if at all the question was actually lengthy, then more, but not more than this.
What are the kind of questions which are asked, Swati, in these examination? Is it more theoretical, or there are application-based questions as well? So that once you are preparing, you prepare with an open mind.
Yes, sir. So the major chunk of the question paper is of theoretical nature only. However, nowadays they are asking practical questions only, but it still comprises only a minor part of the question paper. Earlier, the questions were very, very predictable, because 8 marker questions were asked and you can just guess that what are the longer answer type questions in your subject syllabus. So you can just learn those sections and just write them down. But nowadays they have started asking any random question which can be there in your Bear Act. So they are not out of the Bear Act for sure. But what happened was, earlier people used to read Bear Acts properly for their pre-examination, and when it came to mains examination, they just referred notes and guides, and the answer, they just used to learn from the answers only, that these will be the bigger answers, we should just read them and prepare for that question. So I guess if for mains also, now we have to prepare like prelims only. So there can be any random question like appeals in CRPC, or they asked about the appeal provision in NI,
Correct.
143A in NI, offenses of 138. So that can be any random question nowadays. But that will be very there, that will be in your syllabus only, and that will not be outside the Bear Act. And whatever there is in Bear Act, if you write that, that much will suffice. Because sometimes people tend to think that Bear Acts cannot be sufficient to write an answer, and they'll need supporting case laws, supporting explanations, or any authority over that. But that's not what they are expecting. If it's a 2 marker question and they have asked any random section from your Bear Act, they'll just be knowing the provision. And you just have to state the essentials in that, and that will suffice for your answer.
Great. Swati, now let us move to paper 3 and paper 4. So when you prepare about judicial services, then obviously you will start with laws. But when you actually see and witness that what is the pattern of the question papers and what are the questions which are asked, so there are questions on, say, translation. There are questions on essay. So how did you prepare when it came to paper 3 and paper 4, which obviously is one is essay, and then there are translation and other things?
For paper 2, which is a language paper, it comprises of translation, essays.
Not to
Essays
correct.
will be,
It is sorry, paper 2 and paper 4. Correct.
yes, sir. So
Yeah.
paper 2 will comprise of translation, legal
Hmm.
essay, social essay, and summarization.
All right.
So for translation, I made a list of words. So I bought a Deglot Act for every subject. So I went through the index, wrote all the important words that I could find in the legal Hindi terminology and English terminology, and I made a dictionary for my own sake.
Hmm.
So I have a register in which I have almost 500 to 700 words, which I noted down all over. So went like I used to revise all the list every evening for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whenever I used to get time while having dinner or something, so that I have that instinct automatically in my head, because these are something you cannot learn. If you'll just rot learning, you'll forget those words. So I used to learn that. Apart from that, when the paper actually approached, I practiced translation a lot, because you might be knowing the meaning of a lot many words, but when actually it comes to the paper, they give you sentences, and while framing the sentences you might be actually needing more time, and in paper time management is very much essential. So
True.
I used to practice those, that where can the subject will be, if there is subject, verb, or noun in the sentence, where should that be placed in order to the sentence in order to give a flow to the sentence. It should not be, feeling absurd while reading it in Hindi. If I've written and just translated, ki one word is this and other word is this, and I've just written the words itself, but the sentence is not meaningful enough. So I practice sentence formation also. For that, there is a book in the market, Manmohan Joshi's sir's book. So I bought that book. It comprises of all the previous year question papers of CG and MP. So I practiced all the papers that were there, and I kept a timeline while solving those papers, that I have to complete this much portion in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and these many sentences I will be practicing in a day.
All right. Swati, when did you start preparing about these papers? As to was it after the results of prelims were announced, or was it before that?
So for this translation paper, I used to learn the words from beforehand only. I started actually practicing it from the examination point of view after my pre-result.
All right. Now coming over to judgment writing paper, which is again it is very important because people tend to believe that just because they know law they can write a judgment, but when you actually get to write a judgment, then you'll understand that there are other facets of it. It is not just reproducing the format; it is something more than that. So let us talk about
Correct,
this.
sir.
Talk about this paper.
For judgment writing, I actually attended your classes also. Those were really helpful. I started for judgment writing after my prelims examination. I didn't wait for the results to come out. For judgment writing, I guess if you are thorough with all the subject ones, and especially evidence law, it gives you an edge over it. Because if you are not gone through the subjects ones and you directly jump towards the judgment writing, you will face difficulties. Because as you said, it's not only about the format, it's also about the reasoning also. So if any evidence is there, will it be admissible or not? If there is some other thing, so whether we'll be appreciating it or not. So these things matters a lot. And even though if the cases of conviction or acquittal, whichever way you go, it will be your reasoning that they'll be going through. So if your
True.
reasoning is right, then you will get marks, and if it's not, then format will not get you marks. Because earlier for format only we used to get like 20 to 22 marks, but now even if you are written format also, people are getting 5 marks in a judgment of 40 marks. So that alone is not enough now.
Yes, absolutely true, Swati. Now the paper is evolving. As you said, they need people who have that judicial application of mind. So I get this from a lot of students as well that, sir, this is the question, and the answer is whether A is convicted or A is acquitted. So I have written A is acquitted, how many marks I will get. So I cannot say that how many marks you will get. Why? Because it is not 2 plus 2. As you rightly said, it is the reasoning, it is the application of law in a structured manner which will fetch you marks. So even if, say, you have written conviction, other person has also written conviction, you will get more marks because you have written it in a structured manner, applied your mind, and the other person might not have applied their mind. So this is one of that is why I say it is one of the most important papers. Paper 1 and paper 3, we start preparing from the moment we come out of the law school, when we intend that we'll be going for this examination. But when it comes to translation, I don't think so a lot of law students are aware about this thing. The moment you will enter into the profession, then you would realize the importance of, for example,
Correct.
Madhya Pradesh, you will realize the importance of Hindi. All the documents that you will receive, 199% of the document would be there in Hindi. So these are the papers that you have to prepare in a structured manner. And I'm very happy to know that while preparing, you were conscious of this fact, and that this was one of the reasons as to why you aced this exam. So, Swati, apart from this, I just wanted to know this thing. This was your second attempt, right?
Yes, sir.
It was your second attempt. First attempt also you have given your means. I want you to give a word of advice for those people you who actually, after giving the first attempt, they, you know, obviously it is disheartening when you see the result. And how did you muster that courage that yes, I will give this exam again and I will ace this exam again? So a word of advice for those aspirants.
What I think is that any sort of competitive examinations, they need a lot amount of patience. The patience is one thing that you have. You are not in a hurry to get selected anytime. Yes, it was difficult for me also. Like when your friends get selected, you have prepared with, and you don't understand what kind of mistakes you have made. So one thing I did was I got my copies through RTI. I saw other students' copies. I saw the difference in my answer writing practice, and I tried to get that thing in my answers. That what mistakes am I making? Other thing was, this is just the technical part. Other was my parents were really supporting. So I didn't get to feel like, okay, my first attempt I couldn't make it. I also thought of getting other jobs, and I got into IRDA in the meanwhile. I was applying at other places, but my parents were really clear and they were always confident that I'll make it. So it happens no that if you are dreaming about something, it's not only your dream, but other people also get associated meanwhile when you are dreaming for it. So for you, if it's only about you, you can also come up with excuses that, okay, if it didn't work out, okay, I may leave it or just let it go. But if it's about other people you are concerned about and they are so much invested into it, you cannot always answer all other people that they should also, get rid of their dreams and just let it go. So that factor was always there because they were always constantly nagging that, okay, you will have to do it and you can do it because you want to do it. And it was not a compulsion from their side, but they could see that I actually wanted to do it and they are really, wanting me to do it. So it was a constant support from the family. Also, I guess the people who came around, my friends and mentors, they were really supportive. And for a moment, I couldn't like feel also that I couldn't attempt for my first attempt. Like I couldn't qualify for it.
Great, great. That your answer shows compassion, which is reflecting in each and every word that you're saying. And I'm so happy that a compassionate person, not only a learned person, but a compassionate person like you is entering the judicial services.
Actually, I remember one thing that you always used to say, that for cracking any exam, it's not the preparation that is important. It will be the intention also. So I actually made conscious efforts that universe knows that, okay, I am trying to make conscious effort. Universe, please like hear me out, help me out. It's like
Correct.
I'll study 15 minutes more. I'll wake up early. I don't used to like wake up early, but okay, now you see universe, I'm waking up early.
Yes, yes. This is something that I have to bring on record, Swati, because this was one thing that I was so impressed with, that as Swati just said that she doesn't, she doesn't want to wake up early or she doesn't like waking up early. But for this exam, she made it a point that she'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, Swati, if I'm not
I used to wake up at like 4:30 for few
4:30.
days.
Oh yes, 4:30. She made a habit that at any cost she would wake up at 4:30. Why? Because we tend to give excuses when we do not want to do something. For example, Swati also got a good job in Insurance Regulatory Authority, but then that did not break her. That did not let her to leave her goal of becoming a judge. She made it a point that even though she joined that even though she's getting a good salary, it's a reputed job, she would still want to give it with a true intention. As I said that, all right, everyone is preparing. Why there are so many people who are preparing, but only few getting? Because along with that preparation, you need something extra. You need that intention which will drive you to work hard. So that is something which Swati portrayed in her actions as well. And Swati, just one more thing I forgot to ask about this thing about the interview preparation as well, because again, this is very important, interview preparation, because there are so many people who are as qualified as you are when you enter the room. So tell us something about the interview preparation as well.
So I guess the interview preparation starts the moment you start reading law in your first semester or at your class times, because many a times they tend to ask you some practical questions and you have actually not read about them, but from the legal aptitude that you have developed over so many years, you might be able to answer those questions. So I think there is no specific set of pattern to prepare for interview, but again, when you qualify for interview, you can start reading the recent developments in law, recent amendments, what case laws are there in the Supreme Court, MP High Court. Just if you have little bit time and your sequence is little bit late in the interview thing, you may just check upon the panel, read about what judges are sitting, what are they actually doing, and if they have done anything else apart from law. For example, when I was sitting for my interview, I knew one of the justices, he did really well in sports apart from law. So I made it a point, I won't say I know anything about sports, because I actually didn't. Because sometimes we just blabber and we'll be like, okay sir, we know a little bit, but then they'll get you. So just read about the panel, what kind of expertise they have, what kind of cases they are solving. And since they are high court judges, they'll be knowing ahead of you. So
Right.
I made it a point that I won't repeat wrong answers or won't even utter wrong answers. I just apologized whenever I felt like I am not remembering anything, and they were just okay with that. So I guess just not saying wrong things is a better thing than just saying anything.
Okay. Uh, all right, Swati. Now, final word for the aspirants who are going to give this exam next year as to what, just final word from your side.
So I guess be positive will be the one thing that I would want to say, because everybody must be learning a lot, reading a lot, and preparing really hard. So there's no denial in that. Even if I've got selected, I cannot say I'm better than others who haven't got selected, because many circumstances come together and then you get selected. It's not just how much knowledge do you have or how much preparation are you going to do. So I'll just say that be positive, be determined, and be patient. And there's no result and no amount of result that will say that you are not enough and that you have not done enough. So with that perspective, just keep on going ahead and I guess, give weightage to your mental health. That I would say.
Right. So,
That's all.
Swati, it was great having you for this discussion. And again, as a teacher, I'm extremely proud when I see you entering the profession. And as a common man as well, when I see a compassion, again, I'm saying, when I see a compassionate person like you entering the judicial services, it brings me a lot of happiness. So wishing you a great career as a judicial officer. And thank you so much for your time, because this session, apart from the academic side as to how to prepare, this would certainly bring perspective into the mind of the aspirant. So thank you so much for being
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.